Yes! Welcome into Sports Bit. Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Big game breakdown coming up. Bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books. God damn it, can we get a competitive game in the NBA playoffs? The Cavs run out the Celtics with all that time off. Never a game. And bad bet. Late money on the Celtics, Teddy. What gives?
Yeah, I mean, we saw the wise guys come in on Boston right before tip-off. Closed Cavs minus 3.5 at Chris, compared to -5 or -5, even 5.5 at Bovada, some of the square shops that deal with public bettors. So there was a lot of late money on Boston. And when you think about Cleveland, I mean, this is not a tough physical team. But the Celtics really made them look that way. They were intimidated from the start, Pauly. This was never a game. You know, Kelly Olynyk didn't have the answer this time. Al Horford beaten up down low. And remember what happened with Atlanta and Horford against Cleveland. They weren't any tougher in the paint last year, and it was the same story with a key player just looking a little bit soft. Wasn't pretty for Boston backers last night.
Is this going to go 6? I can't imagine. What do you think?
Well, I mean, look, you don't want to overreact to game one. And the fact that the Celtics were on a short turnaround time certainly didn't work to their advantage. But, I mean, the first half of the last two meetings, both of them in Boston, we're talking 118-81 Cleveland. You know, the Cavs went 20 of 30 on two-point shot attempts in the first half. They won the boards 28-14. Look at the graphic. Kevin Love by himself out-rebounded the Boston starters. Did the Celtics have a better game in them? Absolutely. Do they have a couple of better games in them? Quite possibly. Does Brad Stevens potentially have an edge over Tyronn Lue at some point in this series? Maybe. I'm not going to call a series over after one game, but it wasn't pretty for the Celtics last night. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, when Tristan outplays Horford, you got issues. How about the late game shenanigans with the total? That was an important basket with the lay-in late for the Celtics, Teddy.
Oh, it sure was. I mean, LeBron dominates, 38 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Kevin Love with his best postseason game, 32-12 from Kevin Love against the Celtics front court. And of course, you look at the graphic here. Love and James, the last teammates to score more than 30 at Boston in the playoffs. That'd be Jerry West and Elgin Baylor back in 1966. But you ask about the end-game shenanigans. Sure. I mean, that was a tough beat. I'm not going to call it a bad beat, but a tough beat for underbettors. In-game, the total, if you're in-game wagering, that total was as low as 200.5 at one point. But we saw a very late fourth quarter flurry. You got the under, you're feeling good. It's a 111.97. You're at 208 with a $1.40 left. And then all of a sudden, Gerald Green hits a 3, and Derek Williams hits a 3, and Zeller hits a bucket, and Channing Frye hits a 3. All just boom, 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 back and forth. Now it's sitting 219. You got under 219.5. One last bucket lands 221. Here's the question I want to ask you, Pauly. We start to look at the numbers now with LeBron compared to Michael Jordan. And I've been very reluctant to call LeBron James the equivalent of Michael Jordan. Hey, look at the numbers. 38 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assist games in the postseason. I'm talking about the stats. 31 other 38-point, 9 rebounds, 7 assist games. LeBron has 11, MJ has 6. Can we talk about LeBron in the same breath as the greatest?
No, never. Never. Never, ever, ever. If Jordan doesn't retire, they win 8 in a row. LeBron refused to shoot when he was standing in the corner, and he wouldn't post up J.J. Barea. That's on his legacy. Stop it. Jordan would average 40. Jordan would average 40 a game if he played.
Jordan's legacy includes a bunch of playoff losses to the Pistons. It includes a bad run at the end of his career with the Wizards.
Cut it out. He'd average 40 a game if he played today. He averaged 37 points per game when you could maul people. No, never.
Now, just let me say this. I was with you. I was with you for a long time that Michael, look, we grew up with Jordan. He's the player that, the best player that either of us ever saw. We have to look at LeBron and the level he's been playing at now for a decade and say we can mention him in the same breath with Michael Jordan. The basketball value tweet only proves it.
How much would you pay for LeBron to pee in a cup on national TV?
I don't know.
All right. Enough said. I don't want to get sued, but enough said. It doesn't make any sense what he's doing at this age. in 14 years in the league.
What he's doing at this age in 14 years in the league is playing as well or better than Jordan did at this age, and that's all we need to know.
Well, Jordan did it the right way. I'll leave it at that. I don't disappear for 2 weeks and go to Miami in the middle of the season like LeBron. Bad bets. Mets D-backs over 9.5. Fell 9 and 11 innings. Matt Harvey? So-so.
Yeah, well, I know. This is a bad beat, not a bad bet. You're sitting there, it's 4-3 in the top of the fourth. You got over 9.5. You're feeling good. Well, the Mets didn't score again. And then you're 4-4 in the bottom of the seventh. The only ways to lose the under was for the game to go exactly 1-0 the rest of the way. That's what it did. Tough beat if you had Mets D-backs over yesterday.
A disaster if you're betting the Cubs and the Indians every day, Teddy. 25-cent move on the Indians, they lose again.
Yeah, I mean, anyone back in the Indians has been taking a bath so far this season. And yet, we're seeing day after day the money continues to come on Cleveland. Even with mediocre Josh Tomlin on the mound last night. He had, gave up 2 early home runs. He was pulled from the game down 6-0 in the top of the third. And, not a guy who I'm a little bit surprised how excited the markets were to back Josh Tomlin yesterday. That was a bad bet.
Bad for the books, no doubt. Kershaw owns the Giants. 15-cent move on the Dodgers on the road. Kershaw, what is he now, 90-0? When the Dodgers give him at least 4 runs, easy win with Kershaw on the Dodgers.
Yeah, I've got him at 67-0 when LA scores 5 runs or more. The Dodgers 75 or 6 in those ball games. Those are pretty sick numbers. And of course, when he catches on the run line, that makes it even worse for the books. And the fact that it was an early game, a day game, that makes it a sweat. Because, look, it's 2-0 in the top of the first. The ball game's over right there. But the bookmakers have to sweat because they know if Kershaw wins early, it almost always is going to mean they've got parlay exposure across the rest of the board. And because your average Joe bettor is wheeling the Dodgers and Kershaw into every parlay they make. And, of course, some of those cashed yesterday, thanks to the Dodgers. Easy win.
Yeah, another one. The Yankees get the win against the god-awful Royals.
Yeah, I mean, Jason Vargas ended the game 5-1 with a 1.01 for Kansas City. I mean, way, way off his journeyman career numbers. Bettors were looking for the correction, and bettors got the correction. Vargas only lasted 4 innings and left the game down 6-0. KC showed some offense late, but the Yankees were the right side. Not a good result for the house.
Teddy covers. Middle alert, Cubs-Reds.
Yeah, oh yeah, this total opened 12.5. It closed 11, and the game lands 12. And it was almost like the Mets D-backs. You're sitting there with 9 runs in the third inning, and then all of a sudden it's goose egg, goose egg, goose egg. Finally, Suarez hit a 2-run double in the 7th to get the game to 12, and then nothing but goose eggs after. Both bullpens pitched extremely well, and the game lands 12. If you bet it early, cash under. If you bet it late, no problem cashing the over. That's never good for the books.
How about a 24-2 ATS run? That is on the line Saturday, Game 3, Western Conference Finals. That's coming up on Big Game Breakdown on SportsBit. Betting Insight today and SBRpicks.com.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Time for Big Game Breakdown. As always, live odds. SBR Odds and SportsbookReview.com. Make sure you're betting with a trustworthy shop out there. Game 3 Saturday night. Warriors and Spurs. Spurs at home getting 5.5. 212 the total. Open 6.5 and bet down. What do we know about Kawhi in this one, Teddy?
Well, what do we know? Nothing. What do we think is that he's likely to be able to suit up for San Antonio. His effectiveness, very much in question. But the markets expect him to suit up. This opened 6.5 and already been bet down, and that tells us that the markets expect Kawhi to play. And obviously what we know about the 0-2 teams returning home in the postseason, there are certainly bettors that have shown some interest in the San Antonio side.
24-2 the last 2 years. Take the home team in this spot. Game 3 down 0-2. That is first half, Teddy. Are you going to blindly bet that? It's 24-2.
Well, we'll talk about it when it comes to play of the daytime. But for now, let's talk about the game itself. Because, Game 2 was a complete mismatch. And, of course, we're talking about this game now, so we can do Cavs-Celtics Game 2 in our normal rhythm tomorrow, even though this game isn't going to be played until Saturday. But I mean, look, it was a complete mismatch, obviously, in Game 2. And when you look back on it, you say, does that really carry a lot of meaning? I don't know if it does. I mean, Golden State closed -10 in Game 1 with Leonard healthy. That equates to about, assuming 3 points for each home court, a -4 in San Antonio. And we often see in the postseason the markers adjust more than 3 points for home court. So maybe you see a -3, Warriors -3 in San Antonio, based on market perceptions and adjustments. Then, on Tuesday, Golden State's -14 without Kawhi, and they kill him. So you have to ask yourself, is this line now a notch or two higher than it would have been based on what we saw Tuesday that may not have any effect on what we saw here? Certainly not if you believe this quote from Greg Popovich.
You can't sugarcoat it or say we just had made a couple of shots. Would have been right there. It's pretty lame. So call it like it is. We didn't come to play. We felt sorry for ourselves. We needed to get slapped and come back and play Game 3 and see who we are, end quote. Golden State 4-0 ATS on the road in the playoffs, covering by 37.5 points. Even the Mickey Mouse lineup played well in the second half, Teddy. Everyone, how about McCaw? Everyone knocked down shots in Game 2.
Yeah, they sure did. Kevin Durant, quote, "We just came out and played our game. We moved the ball, everybody touched it and felt good about themselves, and that generated some good looks." Now, the Warriors weren't really that sharp early in Game 1. They got enough work in to shake off all the rust for Game 2, especially with 3 days off ahead. You know, nobody except for Steph Curry got to 30 minutes. This team is fresh, rested, and ready. And, oh, by the way, Steve Kerr, we talked about making a locker room speech in Game 1. He looks like he's making the trip to San Antonio. No decision yet as to whether he will be sitting on the bench, but he will be with the team in San Antonio.
Teddy, there's conflicting reports on Kawhi. Well, at least Jalen Rose doesn't think Pop will play him if he's banged up. Sam Amick said he would have played if it was a Game 6 or 7. If Kawhi's 80%, would you play him Saturday?
Absolutely. No question. This is the playoffs, man. And 80%, if the guy can walk, he's in my starting lineup. And if he can't walk, it's one thing. But if you can walk, no question I play Kawhi. It's your season's on the line right here in this game. If you lose, you can sit him Game 4. But unless there's a risk of making the injury significantly worse, he's got to suit up here. He really does.
All right, game number 2, live odds, SPR odds, sportsbookreview.com. Red Sox and the A's. Velasquez against Gray, $1.05 each way. 9 the total. Oakland bullpen, unmitigated disaster against the Rangers. Last 5 games to Wednesday night. 10 innings pitched, 17 runs, 14 earned. Sonny Gray pitched well. Didn't get a lot of help, though, Teddy. Disaster weekend in Texas.
Yeah, I mean, it sure was. Look, the A's bullpen actually pitched okay last night in Seattle, but prior to that, the previous 5 games, when you're pitching 10.2 innings and giving up 17 runs and getting hit in every one of those games, it's certainly a problem. And it may be even more of a problem considering that Sonny Gray may need some time to work his way back. Look, he hasn't been awful. 0-1, 3.78 through 3 starts, but he's definitely missing some pop. Look at the graphic. Career strikeout percentage, more than 20% of opposing batters get mowed down so far this season, 12.7. And he left with a lead. So obviously the strikeout percentage down. Left with a lead after 6 innings in Texas. His best start so far before the bullpen had one of their meltdowns. I love the quote from Bob Melvin. He was good. He just ran out of pitches. So right now, Gray looks to be like a 6-inning guy, which means that bullpen is going to be in play here in the latter stages against a pretty potent Boston Red Sox lineup.
They gave up quickly on Kendrick to replace Stephen Wright. Price is starting for Pawtucket on Friday. So, debut for Velasquez. 7th season in the Mexican League. Reputation for throwing strikes and getting ground balls. Went 2-1 with a 1.55 in 5 AAA starts for the Red Sox. Was throwing strikes and getting ground balls. Only signed for $30,000. Teddy bets that on a game. And a 10 of innings in winter ball as well. What do you think of the Farrell comments here?
I do not bet $30,000 on a game on the regular. Let's put it that way. Velasquez is a fascinating story. A guy who, spent 7 seasons in the Mexican League and was, he's never going to pitch in the majors. They're 29-year-old rookie. He's making $30,000 was his signing bonus He's not one of these prospects that the markets are likely to get excited by. What's he doing? He's throwing strikes and he's getting ground balls. John Farrell, quote, if he commands the baseball, that's what it's all about. It's not about sheer velocity. It's about pitching ahead in the count. I like the fact that late in camp, he started to come up with a bit more of an off-speed curveball to help him spread the strike zone top to bottom a little bit. But this is a guy that's got a lot of experience, albeit not at the major league level, but still, there's a lot of savvy and strike throwing ability to be here. I'm fascinated to see how he fares against an A's lineup that got shut out in Seattle by Chris Bergman last night. Not exactly the toughest of competition.
Play of the day up next, and we preview the San Francisco 49ers on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
Wrapping up SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. We continue with the NFC West previews. San Francisco 49ers today. Win total, 4.5 at the South Point. 2-14 straight up last year. 5-11 ATS. 10-6 to the over. Teddy, this was a terrible team. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, and there is variance in the win total right now. You can find a 5. You can find a 4.5. And I'm not sure yet which way the market is going to move on this team. I can't imagine we're going to see a lot of over money on San Francisco. Talk about that they went 2-14. Both their wins, both straight-up wins, excuse me, came against the Rams. And they're actually favored 3 times last year. They were at home to the Bucks. That's a line that looks weird. They were home to the Jets. And they were -1 at the close on the road at Chicago. Yeah, they lost all 3 of those games. Not a very good favorite.
Turnovers 20 in takeaways, 25th in giveaways, -5. 4.9 yards per play on offense, bottom 3 in the NFL. 4.4 yards per rush, slightly above average, ranked 28th. 6.4 yards per pass, below average. 47 sacks, 3rd worst in the NFL. What do you have on this defense?
Yeah, so let's start with the stats from last year, okay? They couldn't move the ball on offense, and they're bottom 3 in the league. They were decent running the football, but that's because teams weren't worried about their passing game at all. They said, you want to run against us? Go for it. And the 6.4 yards per pass, that was where the 28th ranking is. The 4.4 yards per rush, slightly above average. So clearly it's a team that's coming from a pretty low space. Now, defensively last year, they were pretty bad. 96.9 QB rating allowed on defense. That's bottom 6. 4.8 yards per rush allowed. That's tied with Miami for dead last in the NFL. The only thing they got right last year, they were decent at sacking opposing quarterbacks with 33 sacks. But all that's last year now. A new broom sweeps clean, Pauly. Kyle Shanahan coming in for the 2017 campaign as a new head coach.
What do you think? He's got a 6-year deal. So does John Lynch, the GM.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about San Fran when we think about this season. Shanahan's got a 6-year deal. Lynch has a 6-year deal. Nobody is in we got to win right now mode. And, of course, we like Shanahan as an offensive coordinator. Well, at least until the Super Bowl, which I still can't get out of my head, Pauly. But, he was a good offensive coordinator. But you're talking about a team with talent. A coach is moving from a team with talent to a team with very limited talent. And it's not just Shanahan, a first-year, first-time head coach. It's not just Lynch, a first-year, first-time GM. Yeah, he did great fleecing the Bears in the draft. But can he remake a roster completely? We're about to find out. First-year, first-time defensive coordinator in Robert Saleh, a guy who worked with Shanahan with the Houston Texans from 2006 to 2009. During that time, Texans had a couple of Rookie of the Years, DeMeco Ryans and Brian Cushing. He has a ring from Seattle, but he also is a first-year, first-time coordinator. Now, here we have a whole new brain trust. And as of this week, the 49ers' 90-man roster features 50 different players that have been drafted or signed since Shanahan and Lynch took over. That's a 55% turnover on the roster, and we're not even in fall camp yet. It's insane how much player movement the 49ers have already gone through.
Is this the worst roster in the NFL?
It is a roster with a lot of holes. They made they had a ton of money to spend in free agency, and they spent some of it. Brian Hoyer looks like he's going to be their starting quarterback. Maybe Matt Barkley, if they sign as a free agent. third-round pick C.J. Beathard, who wasn't anyone that I was looking at in Iowa that I'm like, oh, this guy's the next coming in the NFL. It's probably going to be Hoyer or Barkley, and Barkley's been useless. Hoyer just hasn't been able to stay healthy. They signed Pierre Garçon, threw a ton of money at him. Signed one of the best fullbacks in football. I'm horrible on his name, Jusic. But when you're talking about, they brought in Gary Gilliam as an offensive line from Seattle, and Jeremy Zutta from Baltimore via trade. Some roster upgrades, but we're not talking about a roster that's anywhere near the better teams in the NFL. And at the QB position, there aren't teams there. I can't think of a team that the Texans aren't worse than the 49ers. That's how bad it is for San Francisco at that QB position.
All right, tell us about the schedule.
Well, real quick, I want to talk about the defense and the top three picks. Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster, Ahkello Witherspoon, the top three, all on the defensive side of the football. All three units, one on the line, one in the linebacking core, one cornerback. This defense might be a little bit better if that young talent comes to play. Strength of schedule-wise, look, last year their schedule was easier than average. This year, based on the 2017 season win total numbers, their schedule is right around the league average, slightly below. The NFC West faces the AFC South and the NFC East, along with their own divisions, and the 49ers 2 extra games, Carolina and at Chicago in December. Neither of those look necessarily like victories. One note on their schedule, that they have 3 early start games out east in a 4-week span of October. They're at Indy, then they're at Washington, they're at Philly. The only home game they have between Thursday, September 21st, and Sunday, November 5th is Dallas. So they'll be basically on the road for the better part of a 6-week span. It's not necessarily a real easy schedule for San Fran, even though the numbers show league average.
What do you think? Are they going to win 5 games?
I'm not going to bet the 49ers over. For San Francisco, it is under or pass for me.
I'm with you on that one. Money time, play of the day. It's 24-2. The last 2 years in the playoffs. Where are we going?
Let's go to the Spurs first half. The bettors are already hitting it. I was hoping we were going to be able to give you a +2. It's already down to +1.5. Although you can get that at reduced juice, -105. But we'll take the Spurs first half +1.5. Look, sportsbet viewers, you know the drill with this trend. 0-2 teams returning home in Game 3. We're going to ride it till it dies. San Antonio, first half +1.5. That is our play of the day for Saturday.
Can't beat that. Sportsbet play of the day. That is 24-2 ATS the last 2 years. Bet the home team at home, down 0-2. We're back Friday on Sportsbet. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.